Today's lesson is lesson 8.5, simplest form with fractions. Our first term that we're going to work with is simplest form. I'm going to put some examples up before I continue. So a fraction in simplest form could be 1/4. You can't make it, you can't divide it anymore. Another fraction, as an example, is 2/3. They don't have factors in common. 2 and 3 don't have any other factors in common. 5/9. They don't have any other factors in common. You can't divide 5/9 by 5 because they don't have any other factors in common. All right. So the definition is when the numerator and the denominator have no other common factor other than 1. Remember, you can pause the video, you can go back, and I'm going to leave it at that and go on to number 2. The concept here, it's not like just one word, is the greatest common factor. We might be calling it the GCF. The greatest common factor is the greatest of the factors of 2 or more numbers. The greatest of the factors of 2 or more numbers. Now let's bring it to life with an example. If we have the fraction 8/12, then we are going to make a list of factors for 8 and a list of factors for 12, and then we're going to think of dividing. But let's take it one step at a time. So our list of factors for 8 are, here I'll make it bigger. 1 times 8, 2 times 4. Those are the factors. Factors for 12 are 1 times 12, 2 times 6, 3 times 4. Well, they have a common factor here, which is 1. Okay. But they have a greater factor. They have more factors in common than just 1. They have the factor 2 is a common factor. Let's keep looking for bigger factors. Do they have 6 in common? No. So here it is. The biggest number, the greatest common factor they have is 4. Okay, so there you are. Now we're going to put that into action. There's some steps here. Example number 1. 8/12 in simplest form. Okay. Step number 1, find the greatest common factor. And we actually already did that. We listed the factors. We found that the greatest factor that 8 and 12 have in common are 4. The next step is to divide by that number. And what I mean by that number is the GCF, the greatest common factor. That would be 4. And so we already did part 1. Part 2, you're going to write 8/12. And we're going to divide by this greatest common factor. In the numerator and the denominator. You always do the same thing to the numerator and the denominator, just like when we were doing equivalent fractions. When you divide 8 by 4, you get 2, and when you divide 12 by 4, you get 3. Two and 3 don't have any factors in common besides 1. They're prime numbers. They don't always have to be prime numbers, but if you list the multiples of 2, you get 1 and 2. You list the multiples of 3, you get 1 and 3. And they only have the 1 in common. We've reached our goal. That number is now in simplest form. Okay, let's do many more examples. I'm going to go a little bit faster. Remember that you just have to pause, rewind, and watch it again. So here we go. Here's 7/12. Step 1, I'm going to write the factors of 7. 1 times 7. That's the only way to make 7. Then I write the factors of 14. 1 and 14, 2 and 7. Hey, well, yay, we have a common factor. 7 is the largest common factor besides 1. This wasn't number 2. Number 2 is going to be step 2. Divide. So here it's find the GCF. Step 2 is divide. Here's what we do. 7/14 divide by the greatest common factor, which is 7. 7 divided by 7 equals 1, and 14 divided by 7 equals 2. This is now in simplest form. Okay, last example, example 3. Oh, I saw a good one in the book to try. We have 50 hundredths. So the factors of 50 are 1 and 50, like 1 times 50. 2 times 25. I like to think quarters, guys. 3 doesn't work. 4 won't work, but 5 does. 5 times 10. Okay, so the factors, I'll label as GCF of 50. 1 times 50, 2 times 25, 5 times 10. Let's make the GCF for 100. 1 and times 100. 2 times 50. 4 times 25. 5 times 20. I'm going to stop there. Well, I think I better put one that everyone knows. 10 times 10. But if you look at your numbers, we're looking for the greatest number. And 100 is the greatest number. But we have 100 here, and we don't have 100 there. Okay, we have in common 1, which is small, 2, which is small, 5, 10. We even have 25. They're getting bigger. But we found our greatest common factor. And this is a pretty big number. You want to go for the biggest one. I would go with looking for, okay, 100. I'd go from the biggest one and look to see if there's 100 in both of them. If not, I'd go back. 50 is the second greatest, and 50 worked. Okay, so now what you do is you divide 50 hundredths by 50 in the numerator, divide by 50 in the denominator. We all know our, this has a name that I kind of forgot, and I think it's is it the division property of 1 or the identity property of division? 50 divided by 50 is 1. 100 divided by 50 is 2. This number is now in simplest form. So even large numbers can be done by listing factors and circling the greatest common factor, and you easily make simplest form.